Well, good evening, Galleon. This is Mayor Tom O'Leary back after sort of an irregular Monday night uh, not agenda, when it would be scheduled. So I think there's a reason behind that. Some of it's health related, not myself, but key staff. And another part of it is that we wanted to kind of low profile. I wanted to kind of low profile prior to the election and not have this Monday night exchange, which is sometimes freewheeling and as I get feedback, I think sometimes people are maybe don't appreciate my sense of humor. But in any event, we kind of went quiet, went dark. Those people who are Muhammad Ali fans, we did what one might call a rope-a-dope, in that I just stayed out of the campaign and didn't want what we're doing here in the mayor's office to adversely affect or advantage unnecessarily any of the candidates. So here we are. Some of the election results, at least one situation, is in a yet to be determined category. I think what's interesting about that is you look at the race. I win the various election of the races. I wouldn't say analyzed it, but one of the things that's interesting from my perspective, and I think apparent to most of the rest of the councilmen and many of the people who voted, is that some of the key issues here in Galleon, key municipal issues, are, as I had judged for a few years now, very, very closely contested issues that around which there's not a strong consensus. And I think the first ward race, as close as it is, and there was pretty clear choice between Chad Miller, who's on the Port Authority, and I don't think he'd be offended to say he's an advocate of the Free Center and doing things with the port, and Ken Bodkins, who made it clear in a couple of votes and then on down through the end of this short campaign that he was sort of an anti-Free Center person. So, my take on it is that that's about how close that race as it stands now, razor thin, is indicative of how closely divided opinion is in Galleon about whether to construct the Free Center. I think in part it's kind of like what is the Free Center. So there is clearly some question about that. I think I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. What I hope is that the new council, whatever 7 members the city has to service the next 2 years, that we continue a pro-growth, trying to get Galleon moving. I'm not of the point of view that we made progress and enough progress, or that we don't continue to have to work truly on a daily basis to get things accomplished in so far as building housing, rehabbing existing housing, bringing new jobs to town, but more importantly, working closely with the major employers to keep them profitable, and understanding for sure that operating in Galleon is good for all concerned. So sort of a 3-4 minute recap on the election. I think it's yet to be determined where we'll go, and as we've been spending here in my office a lot of hours the last several weeks putting together the 22 budget, there are a couple of infrastructure type projects that truly, depending on the outcome of this final race, will set up the timing for or whether we go ahead and proceed with infrastructure out there on the north end of town. I think you'll see some other issues that will unfold, either continuing this pro-growth agenda, this pro-growth attitude, or we'll moderate and take a little bit more cautious course. Couple more things before we see if there are questions. I mentioned briefly that we've been working on the budget. I would say an overview of it is that a general fund, income tax funded departments, it looks like the revenue has come in that supported this year's expenditure, and I believe that we're pretty well situated for those general fund supported funds to be able to move into 2022 without any sort of major cutting or only but limited adjustments in what the department heads have requested. So I think that's that's an upbeat, it's a positive part of it. I'd say at the same time that we've got a lot of work to do in terms of bringing projected spending in line with projected revenue in both the water and the sewer funds. So those two funds in particular have been taking a lot of time to try to come up with a decent balancing act. I'd say stormwater seems to be in pretty good shape financially, and electric, because not much has changed in terms of the operation out there. I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to move forward with that budget without a whole lot of squeezing or cuts or adjustment. Water and sewer, what we know around here is funds 601 and 603 will continue to require us to look at some reduction in spending, but most importantly continuing some our quest to upgrade and modernize, particularly the water plant, but certainly attention to the reservoirs and needs that are there at those facilities, and then to a lesser extent still upgrades at the city sewer plant. Take a quick breath and remind myself that plant is 30, close to 40 years old, the sewer plant, so that the time that we'll be able to live with just adjustments and maintenance, major maintenance, rehab of equipment, those days may be be closer to us than we realize. But at this point, with the 22 budget, it looks like we should be doing all right there. But clearly, in engineering funding and projects are going to be needed at the reservoirs, and then certainly at Railroad Street. So if you're interested in the direction the city budget is going, that's, I think, a pretty good quick recap of where we are. And next Wednesday is our target goal for having the first walkthrough of the 22 budget with the City Finance Committee. So a lot of work to be done between now and then, and so we'll just leave it at that. Last thing I'd want to mention is really more of a formal update on something that we had talked about in the hoped for, but the actual notification from ODOT to our area transit provider, SCAT, that they were recipients of a pretty significant, nearly $300,000 grant to renovate, rehabilitate, if you will, a major part of the railroad depot, where they will be providing a bus stop, if you will, for Galion area people meeting a ride or getting a ride, and then also the headquarters that SCAT will move into once renovated here in Galion. So that's it's a big step forward. I know many people who have affection or have a vision of what the depot could become or would become may not be as enthused if it was a brew pub or a fancy restaurant, but there's a lot of reasons. Maybe we'll talk about it as the project reaches the kind of end stages of being completed. But one of the things that is a good rule of thumb when it comes to the reuse of any building, but in particular depots, is to try and reuse it for something that it was built to do to begin with. And so functioning as a transit station, whether it was rail transit or bus or van transit, I think the key is that it really, we believe, will function well as our local transit hub. And over time, our hope and vision is, shared vision between administration and SCAT, is that this will increasingly be a destination for trips around the county on a regular, maybe scheduled basis, and then certainly look at ways that we can provide transportation to folks who want or need to get to Ontario and other areas. So I'm pretty excited about it. I think people have been, even recently, there have been some people commenting about how the perception is that the depot's falling in. I kept my mouth shut when that stuff was floating around social media, but it's far from falling down, and feel real confident with the combination of ODOT funded improvements through SCAT and the money that the city has set aside here in 21, and I expect another small allocation of money for 22, that those three sets of funds will really get this project finished. New parking lot, better handicap accessibility, and I think that's it's something that we've been working on the last 8 years. Maybe not as with as immediate results as some people would hope, but the building on the exterior looks good. The roof's been repaired. We're real excited about now being able to go inside and bring some utility, some function to the old depot. So that's in the offing, and what we'll likely do is jointly between SCAT and the city identify a general contractor, and that contractor will be responsible for the things that the city needs to do to the building's core, namely electric and heating, and then also provide the general contracting improvements that SCAT's going to need to make that space work for them. So, anyways, that's what we have. I think budget will continue to be a big thing. We'll see. It's going to be a close call. I think most of the votes on the 22 budget will be taken by this council, but I really hope that new council members that would be council-elect members would avail themselves to the information and get involved in the discussion as much as possible. I think that bodes well for finishing up 21, and also to make sure that we have a good understanding and consensus around what's in the 22 budget, what we can afford, and what may be beyond our grasp, or maybe a 2023 project. So a lot of learning, a lot of work to be done on the budget, and clearly the composition of the council and the new committees will have a lot to say about in which way city government moves over the next couple of years. So, all right, I'll just stop abruptly and see if we have any questions.
Yes, I do have a couple tonight.
Okay.
First question came from Cindy. She asked, how long will the city be picking up leaves?
Indefinite. I think we will continue to pick up leaves until the winter season makes us take off the attach the snow plows, disconnect the leaf collecting equipment, and clean out the beds of our dump trucks and get going. So I would expect it to, unless we get hit with a major early December Arctic dump, then we'll probably be picking them up in through December.
Okay.
It's pretty neat. Since Cindy asked the question, I'm going to add on to it. It wouldn't be the first time. we were looking at the budget, of course, for this year. We haven't spent much on leaf pickup, but looking at what we have budgeted and what we have next year, what you find is we spend about $50,000 all total on leaf pickup. And so, we have about 5,000 utility customers. I'm not sure how many structures, but when you look at it from that point of view, that leaf pickup, although some people are more meticulous than others, for $10, it's a pretty good service. And so I just want to point that out because nobody else will. So the total cost, when you divide it up among residents or among utility customers, is is less than $10. And so some people note that they don't get anything out of their monthly $6 stormwater charge. It's not quite exactly right. They do get their leaves picked up, and I'm not trying to be funny about that, but it does seem to be a pretty good bargain. And Cindy's question raises we don't have an on-off switch. We kind of, it's really what we do between the end of mowing season and the end of snow season. So it really kind of, it flexes, but overall it's about $10 a customer. You all be the judge as to whether or not that's a good bargain or not. So fair enough. What else we have?
Okay, next question tonight came from Lynn Sterling, who's a former police officer.
Yeah.
Hi, Lynn.
Yep.
She asked, is there any way someone could look at the timer for the traffic signal at 598 and Brant Road? It takes a long time for the light to change if you are on Brant.
Yes, we can take a look at it. I don't want to say tinker is not the right word, but we've been adjusting that, trying to get that right, and yeah, we'll go out and do that. I know with a left-hand turn on Brant, sometimes you have trouble getting that accomplished, whether it's a left-hand turn going north towards 30 or whether it's, say, over and going westbound on Brant and trying to turn left to get onto Portland Way. So, all right, we'll take a look at it. It will, yeah, that's all I'll say. The whole timing and the geometry of that intersection will change over the next year and a half, but that's no reason not to look at and maybe adjust that turn signal. I think it's the turn. That's what she's talking about. Yeah, there'll be a protected turn lane, meaning you'll have a dedicated left-hand turn lane going east, going on to 30 once the new project is constructed. In fact, that's part of the second project that we were able to go out and get some state money to assist with, that left-hand turn lane on Brant. That'll give a separation in the signal timing. So, all right, hopefully that's not too much information and only a little bit of false information I just made up on the fly. So, no, I think that's got the message. We'll take a look, Lynn, and we know how to reach you, so we'll follow up.
That is all the questions I have at this time. If anybody has anything else, please submit it now.
Okay, the goal of this Monday night thing is to exchange information, try to provide a question and answer forum. Matt and I think are wide open for suggestions or ideas of how to improve it, how to avoid it being the same old. There's some comments from people who are frequent commenters on Facebook, on some of the group sites, that were really to the effect that either I had or the show had lost the appeal to that individual. I certainly don't want that to, I don't want to offend or blow people off, and we're very open to improving the format. If there are some suggestions, reach out to us, let us know. People for the most part these days aren't shy about offering their opinions. So on this, how we can make it better, less frequent, perhaps some guests, I don't think that changing the person who does it's going to work for a few years, so I don't know if that's an option, but we could change the way the information's provided and go on from there. But anything else?
Just a late question from
Yeah.
Cindy. She asked, will the veteran banners be coming down soon?
Yeah, I think generally speaking, it's all one kind of changeover. The veterans banners come down along about the time soon after Thursday, and along about the time that Christmas decorations will be going up. So that's. And although we're not directly involved, except providing the labor for such a cool idea, I think everyone who's got a family member up there knows how to retrieve that, or what the plan is going forward with I believe the American Legion is going to step out front and make sure that now tradition almost continues, and anybody who gets around the state or gets around other states, you have to put a smile on your face, because ours are as cool as any that I've seen. A lot of towns are doing it, but in terms of the quality of the portrait of the soldier and the kind of overall appearance, man, it makes you proud to know that we have among the nicest veterans banners around. So anyway, Cindy, yeah, they'll be coming down sometime after Thursday, and my hope and understanding of the situation is that they'll be back up again next year, maybe with a different sponsoring organization. Got anything else?
I have a question that just came in from Shirley.
Yeah.
Looks like maybe she hit send before she completed the thought, though.
Yeah.
Shirley, can you finish your question?
We're supposed to. We had this telepathic thing between Shirley and myself for years. She's probably expecting me to fill in the thought.
Okay, while we wait on Shirley, another question from Cindy. Is there
Yeah.
a Christmas celebration planned in the downtown and a tree lighting?
Yes, and I'm only going to be a participant. I was asked by someone who may be Santa Claus this year if my granddaughters were going to be involved, and yeah, they're still that age, and I do know some of the components. Matt and I are part of the Depot group, and one of the volunteers who really gets stuff done in this town, a guy named Jim Gerstenslager, is heading up that Santa breakfast, and so Jim will make all of us look good. So you got to be his friend. He's really easy to be friendly with, but he gets stuff done, and so that is a component. What else will happen in addition to the parade? I guess you'll have to stay tuned, Cindy, but a parade and the Santa breakfast, I'm not sure if they'll have that trolley and the stuff at the theater, but anyways, it's always something new and different, and there will be a tree lighting ceremony, and if I had to guess, Ash Welch will be there with his pitch pipe, so doggone sing-along like many people have looked forward to on that afternoon. So what we got, Shirley?
Yeah.
She's here.
Yeah, she asked, do we have any idea when the absentee votes will be in?
Yeah, I think it's the 15th, Shirley. I think there are 2 absentees that we know about. Gee, we called in the next day to see what was going on because the vote was so close. But anyway, and then there is, we understand it here in this office, 7 provisionals. So I don't know the circumstance. Somebody went to vote, their address had changed, they went and voted their new address, which is in the 1st ward, and so, my guess is that's a decision made by the Board of Elections. My guess is that most of those 7, so you have 9 votes out, and it's pretty close. It's pretty close, and as I said before, it's kind of interesting to see, depending on it will be a pivotal vote depending on which way it goes, and so you'd hope, I think, that I would be spending time looking at who would be on the new council and what kinds of issues are important to them, and therefore what kinds of things we can move the city forward on. So I've been looking at that quite a bit, and so it'll be interesting to see. Indeed. Is that it?
Going back to the veteran banners, I just want to point out, Larry said it's for soldiers and sailors. Sorry, Larry, no offense intended.
Yeah, I'm a non-vet, so you guys knew that already. And just no offense. I see Mike Richard all the time. He has a couple of Coast Guard hats that he wears, so I'm well aware of the contribution of more than just soldiers. So, anyways, touche. Good point, well made. Anything else?
That is all I have at this time.
All right. Well, let's. I appreciate you spending a little bit of time thinking about what ways that we can make this more interesting. The ways that we can get more about what's going on in city government, in the minds or in front of city residents. We're going to have a few new council members. Maybe that's something to consider. If somebody wants to come on and talk a little bit about what they want to achieve, and we might be able to accomplish that. Even though folks may not be, may have their issues with Meta, or better known as Facebook, I think I can't. Matt and I've talked about this a lot. I don't know what other medium, what other format that we can reach as many people as we can, either live on Monday night or certainly pass it along through Facebook or YouTube or whatever. So anyways, looking at ways to improve it, give it some thought, and the only one's like, well, throw the guy off the guy monologuing at the into the camera. That's probably not an option, but it'd be funny if you suggested that. I'd take it under advisement, but not for a few years yet. So anyways, tomorrow night, not a whole lot on city council. Be interesting to see the health board meeting. So we're really getting to the point of this year where we're winding down. I'll go on for another second. It's not quite 8:30 yet. Big thumbs up. I noticed, believe me, I noticed that Brian Satterfield had the largest number of complimentary votes. I was one of them, and I would want to pass along the compliment to him about how successfully he has dug into his internship, his part-time work that he's doing for Auditor Baldinger, and you can really see the traction and I'm encouraged by the kind of working relationship that we'll have up here when Brian takes office next year. So I think that's about all I got tonight. Anything else?
No.
All right. Congratulations to the winners, and we'll continue to try to push this city government forward, and stay tuned, and thanks for watching tonight. Good night.